Welcome to the Business Shop Podcast, where our guests speak on meeting the challenges of entrepreneurship, as well as offer tips and advice on business, marketing, technology, and more. Whether you are a newbie or a seasoned professional, this episode is for you. I am your host, Audrey Wiggins. Let's chop it up. Well, hello, Chop Squad. Audrey Wiggins here. I'm excited again to bring to you another awesome guest. Today, we're going to be talking with Bret Ridgway, and he is a 25-year veteran of the speaking and book publishing world. So he's going to be taking us to the next level in our entrepreneurship. He is an 8-time author, including the #1 bestsellers, ABCs of Speaking and Mistakes Authors Make. His latest book, How to Build a Profitable Speaking Business, has been recently released. So that one's just released. And Bret also hosts a podcast, and his podcast is the Spotlight on Speaking show with Bret Ridgway. So we'll look forward to giving you all those links later on in the show so you can catch up and follow him and glean some more information. So Bret, welcome to the Business Chop.
Well, Audrey, I'm so excited to be with you today, and hopefully we can share a few pearls of wisdom that will help your listeners out.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, if we can get started with how you were smitten, how you were drugged into the speaking business.
You know, it's one of those stories where, as you look back, it's one of the things that you would never imagine you're at today where 10, 15 years ago or, 20 years ago, whatever. But way back in the mid-1990s, Audrey, I actually put up the first portal website in the plant engineering and maintenance industry.
Oh, wow.
So I had a website called Maintenance Resources, and I was selling, back in those days, I'm going to date myself here, VHS tapes.
Okay.
And manuals and all that aimed at plant engineers and maintenance mechanics and all that. So that's about 1995. Around the same time frame, I actually had a joint venture with a guy named Carl Galletti where I took over his old hard-to-find marketing book catalog and put that online. But Carl decided to do his first internet marketing conference in 1999 in Las Vegas. And I remember, I was at the old Las Vegas Hilton, but he called me up and asked me if I would handle the back sales table for him.
Okay.
Audrey, I didn't even know what backroom sales meant, but I had not been to Las Vegas before, so it sounded good to me. So I said, sure, I'll do that.
Right, exactly.
So that kind of led to a side business where over the course of the next 15 years or so, I managed the back sales table about 150 different events. I saw a couple thousand different speakers in person.
Wow. So how did you get into this again?
So when I was managing the back sales table at Carl's invitation for his first event, I went out and did that, and that led to the side business where we'd provide the backroom support for the event promoters.
I see.
And when some of the speakers found out that I was doing product fulfillment for my own websites that I put back up in the mid-1990s, they cornered me and said, "Hey, Bret, will you take over some fulfillment for me?" And I'd been thinking about it for a while because it was kind of a natural outgrowth of all the people I had gotten to know in the industry. So, if back in the early 2000s, you name a name in the internet marketing space, I knew them. I worked with a lot of them. So, I was a behind-the-scenes guy. And so when they found out, again, I was doing fulfillment, they said, "Hey, Bret, will you do some fulfillment for me?" And so I founded a company called Speaker Fulfillment Services with a business partner back in 2003.
Okay.
And Speaker Fulfillment's still going today. But I was happy being the back of the room guy. That was kind of my shtick. I'm kind of an introverted person naturally. And so I was happy being behind the scenes or whatever. Well, eventually I said, Bret, you kind of need to get over that introvertedness and get up on that stage yourself and share some of what you've learned along the way about speaking and book publishing and all that. So I started doing what I would call buffer sessions, Audrey. So I would go into a conference and I would deliver pure content. So I was not selling anything from the platform whatsoever. So, most of these events in the internet and information marketing spaces are multiple speaker events. And
That's
so
right.
They'd do their talk and then they'd offer their continuing education. Well, rather than having pitch after pitch after pitch, they would bring me in to deliver straight content, no pitch or whatever, to again, be that kind of buffer or whatever. So I did that for starting about 10 years ago. And it was always as a business building type speaking situation, so hopefully that a fulfillment client would develop out of the wisdom or whatever was shared from the stage. And then honestly, about 6 months ago, decided to part ways with that fulfillment company that I founded and brand Bret Ridgway for the first time.
Okay.
And so I'm focusing now on speaking and consulting for people who have a message they need to share with the world, but they just don't really understand how the frickin' industry really works. And so I'm taking that behind the scenes viewpoint that I had that's fairly unique, and the 2,000 speakers I saw in person, and I saw what they do well and what they honestly suck at. And so, that's kind of a focus now where we got to where we are today.
Wow. So you're helping us, folks, on how to build a profitable speaking business. That's your main focus then.
It is. I mean, there's a lot out there about how to get more comfortable on stage and all that. And there's, a fair amount on getting gigs and all that. But, looking at it as a whole business, I felt like I had a perspective that others don't have where I could bring benefit to the table. And so that's my primary focus at this point in time.
Okay. So what does that what does that look like? Or where would we start? Are these people who are just trying to get into the speaking business as their first entrepreneurial experience, or are these people who have products and services and now they want to take that to another level? What is
could be any of those, Audrey, honestly, could be any of those. I mean, it could be a business entrepreneur who's built a successful business and now they feel like they have a message they want to share with the world. Or it could be a energy healer or a wellness coach or somebody like that who, again, feels like they need to share with the world, but they don't, again, understand the business. And so it's all about, defining your signature speech and, what you're going to talk about, who your ideal client is. And then, three things, how to get on more stages, how to get on the right stages. And I could tell you some horror stories about being on the wrong stage. And then how to monetize what you're doing from the stage. So in my mind, there are three types of speakers. One is the keynote speaker, which we're all very familiar with. The person paid a fee to go into a corporation or an association and deliver a talk. The second is what I call the platform seller. That's a person who speaks for free, but they make their money on the back end by offering whatever it is that they have, coaching, mastermind, online membership site, whatever it may be. And then the third type is what I call the business builder speaker. So they're maybe speaking to the local Rotaries or Kiwanis or whatever, sharing some wisdom with the hope that they will have some clients. So I honestly feel like, Audrey, anybody should be a speaker, even if they're not looking at it as their primary business, because nothing will give you greater credibility in the minds of your target audience than being the one up in the front of the room. And even better than that, being the one up in the front of the room with a book to your name.
Right.
So
right.
if you're, a chiropractor, an attorney, a financial guidance person, whatever it may be, you should be speaking as a business building tool because it gives you credibility that you just can't buy, honestly, otherwise.
Okay. So with that in mind, we definitely, whatever that platform is, as a business builder, we have to be in front of the right audience. Correct. So how do we know to choose, just because somebody just might ask us, or we may see a flyer or something, this event's coming up, they're looking for speakers, because we want to get our, the biggest bang for our buck, even though you may have a captive audience of 100 to 1,000 people, but, what's the percentage in that should we be looking for potential leads?
Yeah, one of the things that certainly speakers, in my opinion, are very weak at is looking at the demographics of the audience they're going in to speak to. So how can you find that out? Well, if it's an event that's been put on for many years in the past, they typically will have some type of media kit that, breaks down their audience. Are they men or women? What age group are they? What's their educational background, etc. So you should talk to the event promoter to see if they have that type of information available. You should also go back and find out who maybe has spoken at their event in the past, other speakers, and reach out to them and say, okay, what was your experience on this person's stage? What was the audience responsive to in terms of topics or price point of an offer, etc.? But you need to find out as much as you can about that audience in advance. If you're going into do a corporate type gig, well, who are the movers and shakers in that corporation that are going to be in your audience so that you can address as best as possible what the true pain points of that audience are. And so, why are they coming to that seminar? Is it to learn about internet marketing or, improving their health or building a stronger relationship with their spouse or whatever? but, why are they coming to that event? And then obviously your speech or talk should tie into what the theme of that particular event is. If you're doing a keynote, talk to those decision makers who are bringing you in. What is it that what's your true pain point? What are you really wanting me to address here that will bring the most value to your organization?
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's important. So during our homework, not just, I got a speaking gig and, you run it off and you're standing up there speaking, you're excited, but the audience is just kind of deadpan looking at you like, what is he talking about?
Yeah, let me tell you a story, Audrey. So I was at an event handling the back of the room a few years ago, and it was an internet marketing conference. And for whatever reason, the event promoter was all about getting as many names on a stage as possible. So as it turned out, he had 3 speakers, and this was like a 3 or 4 day event. He had about 20 to 25 different speakers altogether, but he had 3 different speakers all on the subject of copywriting. Now, while copywriting is a very important subject, by the time they got to that 3rd speaker on the same subject, offering, pitching products about copywriting, it was like, been there, heard that, tuned out, and that person's chance of selling anything was about 0.
Okay.
Because it wasn't the right stage for him because he didn't find out who the other speakers were, what they were talking about, and figured out how he could fit into that event without being duplicate content.
Right.
See, another time, I know a gal named Marcia. She actually lives up in Chicago, but she is a youth minister speaker or whatever.
Okay.
And she was asked by an organization to come in to provide a contrarian point of view to their people. Well, who wants to go and speak to an audience that's going to argue with you? So see, she decided that wasn't the right fit for her. That wasn't the right stage. And so you got to do your homework in advance and figure out, is this a good match of what I bring to the table and what they want?
So what about panels? Is that something that you suggest, or just, the single person, on the stage speaking?
I've done several panels in my time, and I think they're valuable. I mean, speaking is certainly one of those skills that it takes time to master. I mean, I'm not the world's greatest speaker by any stretch of the imagination, but it takes time to master. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you will get with it. The key is obviously knowing your content inside and out, so you can talk it backward and forward and up and down and every which way. But if you know your stuff and you're just sharing, the audience, you're there to benefit the audience, to bring them value, to share with them. So if you're just sharing what you know, then it should be non-threatening. And again, you'll get more comfortable with it over time. And if speaking on panels is your first foray into the industry, by all means, get up there and take advantage of that and do that. I mean, I've had people tell me multiple times that, until you've delivered that talk 100 times, you're not really proficient at that talk. So, when you're first starting out, take advantage of as many opportunities to get up in front of people as you can. Eventually, you will have to pick and choose your battles and, get more selective about what stages you want to be on and all that. But out of the gate, if you're just starting out and somebody asks you to speak, I suggest you say yes so you can get more comfortable up in front of that crowd.
Okay. You've brought up about 3 questions in my head while you're speaking, and you can choose which one to answer first. One, you're talked about, oh my goodness, just speaking. So then you're just getting on as many stages or, take these opportunities. So that brings about one question about remuneration of, do we take, is that a mix of free or paid gigs? And I'm seeing, and then the other, what was the question I had? Oh my goodness. It was, you just brought up so many while you were talking. We can start there if you want though.
Well, typically when you're starting out, most of the speaking engagements are going to be free type speaking engagements. So you're going to use it as a business building tool. You should ask the event promoter, will they allow you to have a fishbowl drawing or give away a copy of your book or, do something to capture the names of the audience so that you can then follow up with them. And again, the hope is that they will have a need for whatever your type of service is at some point in time. And you're the logical choice for them because you're the expert. You're the local guy that they've heard it talk about that particular subject. So when they need that, you're the one that they think of. So initially free, eventually you will need to decide whether you want to be a keynote speaker or a platform selling speaker, or just continue as a business building speaker. Because if you're going to speak and you want to build a business around it, well, it has to be treated as exactly that, a business. You can't just, half-ass it and then hope you're going to get and really build a business. But if you're, again, a chiropractor, an attorney or whatever, and you just want to do business building speaking, by all means do so. But if you desire to build a speaking business, then you've got to decide, am I going to be primarily a keynote speaker or a platform seller? And only you can determine which is right for you. I mean, I can't answer that question for you.
Right. Can you explain the difference again?
Sure. So a keynote speaker is a person paid a fee by a corporation or association to come in and deliver a talk. It could be $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. I mean, the big names, the Bill Gates and all that, they'll get paid millions to go in and deliver a talk.
Right.
But they're going to go into the organization and deliver that talk. Could be a 90-minute, 60-minute, could be a half-day training, whatever, but they're just, they're paid a fee plus expenses to come in and deliver a presentation. The platform seller person is typically going to go into a multiple speaker event where they'll be making pitches or they'll be making offers of continuing education. So they come in on their own nickel, and if they don't sell anything, then they, maybe they benefited in some way from the event, but they didn't make any money at the event. So they're going to make their money by selling products on the back end of their talk. So they'll deliver content for 60, 70 minutes or whatever, and then they'll go into their close for about 15 minutes where they'll offer whatever that continuing education is. Now, people will ask me from time to time, well, Bret, should I be a keynote or should I be a platform seller? And again, only you can determine which is best for you. And there are some who have mastered both worlds, certainly. But I will tell you that if you can master the art of selling from the platform, you stand to make far more money as a platform seller. So speak for free and sell, but you'll make far more money as a platform seller than you ever will as a keynote speaker.
How was that, Bret?
Pardon me?
How was that?
Because, well, let me just give you an example. I have a colleague, Audrey, who spoke at an event in the UK a few years ago, and he had a high ticket offer, a $5,000 coaching program or whatever. And in one 90-minute presentation, he sold $995,000 worth of his coaching.
Wow.
Now, in the platform selling world, typically it's a 50-50 split between the event promoter and the speaker. So, after the promoter took his cut or whatever, he still walked away with almost $500,000 for one 90-minute presentation. Well, like I said, unless you're Bill Gates or Donald Trump or somebody, nobody's going to pay you $500,000 to come in and deliver a keynote speech.
Correct. Right.
So, I mean, it's not an easy skill to master, certainly. But if you can get good at it and there are speaking opportunities out there, then you can make a lot more money selling from the stage than you will be paid as a fee type thing.
Okay. Earlier you had mentioned the signature speech or talk.
Yeah. Now, signature speech is going to be the primary talk that you will deliver to an organization or at an event or whatever. Now, I recommend certainly that your signature talk or signature speech be modular in nature, because there will be situations where you go into an event, you think you have a 60-minute slot, and they'll say, hey, Bret, we're running a little bit behind schedule. Can you do it in 50 minutes or whatever? So you got to know what you're going to take out of your core presentation, whether it's an interactive activity with the audience or whether it's an extra story you tell or whatever, and know how to adjust that particular signature speech to fit the situation.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I had somebody a while back, Audrey, they were telling me that they thought they were going in to deliver a 90-minute talk, and they were told, no, you have a half-day training that you're supposed to deliver here. Well, because they knew their subject so well, and they had all those extra modules that they could add in, they had no trouble doing a half-day training. But, that obviously is part of your homework up front when you're going to take a minute. How long do I really have to talk here? So obviously a misunderstanding in that situation, but, she made the best of it.
Okay. Wow. So what, in your what are your biggest keys for getting more gigs as a speaker?
It's all about relationships, Audrey. It truly is about relationships. The people that know you and the people that you know, And it takes time to build up those relationships. You have to nurture them. You have to truly go in with the mindset of what can I do for you first? And then we'll come back to you tenfold over time if you go in with that attitude. But if you go in with the attitude of what can they do for me? And, if they don't have something that they can do for you immediately, it's like, forget about you or whatever, then you're not going to succeed. So you've got to get out there and network. And there are a lot of great networking events out there for speakers. There's one called Speakers Playhouse, for example, that every Thursday they get together for like 90 minutes, and each person has a chance to talk about what their signature talk is, what kind of opportunities are they looking for, and how do people find out more about them if they want. They also have event promoters on there who talk about what stages they have that they're looking for speakers for. And so you get into these events and you have a minute to make your pitch or whatever, but it's all about meeting these other speakers, because speakers can become some of your best referral partners for getting additional gigs. But the bottom line, it's about relationships. I mean, the fulfillment company I mentioned earlier, Audrey, that I founded in 2003, Speaker Fulfillment Services, was built entirely off of relationships. There was no proactive advertising being done. It was people I met at events that became clients, who became referral partners. And we grew that company to about $6.5 million off of relationship marketing.
That's awesome. Because I'm looking at your kind of your background here. You like the biggest oops moments that you've seen from speakers, or the biggest changes that you've seen over the past 10 years.
The speaking industry certainly has changed some. Obviously, virtual summits are a big thing now. So there are virtual speaking opportunities for people that don't want to travel. And there are some differences that you need to be aware of in terms of virtual. Make sure you have good lighting, good microphone, and all that. Things that you don't, think about when you're going on to somebody else's stage, and they're covering that for you. So you need to make sure you have the right tools and you're prepared to, deliver the proper presentation. Now, the speaker fulfillment services, a lot of their clients are information marketers, and the information marketing world has changed dramatically in the last 10, 15 years. I mean, when we got started, it was all about the thunk value of a product, the big box package, we called it.
Right.
So, it'd be 2 manuals and 10 DVDs and 10 CDs, and it was all about thump, man. How much thump? Well, obviously, most people have gone to online delivery of their content versus physical.
Correct.
Although I will say, I think it is a mistake to do digital only if you're delivering content to an audience. You need to incorporate some offline touches, such as, maybe a monthly magazine or something, so that it reminds people of you. But the world has changed significantly, and we've had to adapt, both as and the fulfillment company had to adapt majorly. The speaking industry had to adapt, obviously, significantly when COVID hit and everything, became virtual and all that. So you got to go with the flow these days. I mean, and you got to recognize the changes and adapt to them. And, for you as a speaker, it's still about delivering the value to the audience, because they're your primary concern. You got to bring value to them. You got to support that event promoter. And then, they'll support you if you deliver high value content. I mean, one of the things that I think about quite a bit is, what are event promoters really looking for, Audrey? And I think, first of all, they're looking for speakers that can deliver great content to their audience. Number two, they're looking for speakers that can effectively sell from the platform, because it will put money in the pocket of the promoter, obviously. They're looking for people that are easy to work with. I mean, they don't want prima donnas. They don't want people that you got to send a limo to the airport to pick me up and bring me to the hotel and all that stuff. They're looking for people that can put butts in their seats for them, so that are willing to help promote their events to get more attendees there. And they're looking for people they have relationships with, who are their friends and colleagues, people that they know and trust and all that stuff. So, I mean, if you can match up with those event promoter desires, then you're going to be far more attracted to them to be somebody asked to be on their platform.
Okay. Yeah. So many people say you must have a book if you're a speaker. Do you agree with that? And what is the biggest mistakes you feel authors may make?
Yeah, I think it's critical to have a book, and it's one of the things, again, it's a credibility builder. So if you're let's go back to our early example, a chiropractor, a financial advisor or whatever, if you have a book, it stamps you as the expert in your area. I mean, speaking and having a book are two of the greatest assets you can have if you want to, build up your business, whatever your business may be. But, in terms of mistakes that authors make, I mean, one of the biggest things I think is they don't recognize how important it is for your book to be consumable. And here's what I mean. I like to go into a bookstore, Audrey, and, I'll browse through the marketing books. And if I pick up a book and I start, browsing through that first chapter, and it's 20, 25 pages long, it's like, oh my God, it's too much work to just read one chapter. I'm not going to buy that book or whatever. So you got to think about shorter chapters because people like to feel, that they're making progress and all that.
Absolutely.
Are you familiar with the fiction writer James Patterson?
No, I'm not.
So he writes a lot of mystery type books and all that, but his chapters are 2 or 3 pages long. So it's like, well, I can read another chapter. I can read another chapter. I can read another chapter. Next thing you know, you've read 50 or 100 or 200 pages because it was easily consumable. So you got to think about the consumability of that book. I mean, if your book is aimed at an older audience, then, don't come in with a little 9 or 10 point font or whatever and make it hard for them to read your book. Break apart your paragraphs. What can you include in terms of pull quotes or Johnson boxes or something that will make it a little bit more eye friendly? It's always about consumability because if people will not get through your book, what are the chances of them to coming back to you for another product or service that you have? I mean, it goes way, way down. So you got to help them consume your content.
Wow.
You should also make sure that your book is, now we're talking the nonfiction world here, obviously, business building books and all that stuff, but your book needs to be primarily a lead magnet. And, it's great to sell a lot of books, but that isn't the reality for most people. The book is a credibility builder, and it's a device to guide them to your higher ticket offers. So you need to have what we call bounce backs in your book. You need to have ways that you can draw them from the book to your website so that you can then capture their name and information to do follow-up marketing to them. Because face it, if somebody buys your book in a bookstore on Amazon doesn't call you up and say, hey, Audrey, Bret Ridgway bought your book today. Here's his contact information. Go follow up and market to him. No, it's Amazon's customer, not your customer. So what are you going to put in that book to drive them from that book to your website to get them into your world so then you can follow up market to them. So you got to have those bounce back mechanisms in a book, and you got to have those enticements to bring them into your world. So you could offer, a special report or an audio interview of you or something on your website that they have to opt in order to receive. And then you can do that follow-up marketing to them. So those are two critical elements and mistakes that many authors make.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're talking like you're an expert. So I know you're as part of your offerings in the background, is publishing. So I think that's really important about that.
I think it is critically important for a person looking to build a speaking business, certainly, to have a published book. And now you got to decide whether you want to go self-published or a hybrid publisher or traditional publisher. And there's pros and cons to each approach. But if you have a business you want to build, a book's a great tool to do it. And most people certainly have a book in them. And most people have multiple books in them. But, you don't have to start with a blank screen and all that. I mean, if you've written blog posts or you've, been doing, maybe you've contributed artists to a magazine or you've done interviews or whatever, get them transcribed. Instead, take the content you've already created and repurpose it and use that as the basis for a book. So you don't have to start from scratch necessarily. Some people, it's easier to talk your book. So get somebody to interview you, ask you the key questions, and then again, transcribe them, edit them down, and then use that as the basis for a book. And if you're just not up for a full book initially, then get involved in a compilation book and contribute one chapter to a book. So then you can say you're, a co-author with some big name, and it's a great starting point. Just do it. How many books do you have, Audrey?
Inside my computer, I have 2. I just thought of a third one. So
there you go.
I do have 2 unfinished books. This is so embarrassing, but yes, I do have some books here that I need to get out.
All right, get her done.
And and to that point though, about when you're asking me that how many books I have in me, we do have, in as much as we have some kind of area of expertise, we have a book.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, we just need the time to get it out and get rid of, dispel the fears. So what are some of the fears? I could probably just say my own, and those would be probably, the ones of really getting out there, because I think, like I said, I think a book really does, like you already said this, brings credibility when you're standing and in front of that audience, or if someone's, is actively looking for speakers and they say, oh, well, she's, published this, and they go kind of, read the clip notes of it or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, when an event promoter is assessing different speakers and, they're all both speak on the same topic, but if this one has a book and this one doesn't, well, this person is going to stand out compared to the other person. So it's an important marketing tool, certainly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. So are there any other mistakes that you've seen us make, as authors or speakers?
How long do you want to go today?
Okay, we have about 3 minutes.
Okay, all right. Let me tell you one more story.
We've covered a lot, but I don't know if you want to, move on to the next question or not.
No, let me tell you a story, Audrey. So we were handling the back
love stories
at an event. I think it was in Atlanta a few years ago, and the speaker had the true dream scenario for any platform selling speaker: the true table rush. I mean, people were literally at the back sales table, throw their credit cards at us to order this person's product. When all was said and done, this person had done $375,000 in sales from their presentation. Well, great, you say. Well, what was not so great was that within the next 30 days, every single penny of that $375,000 had to be refunded to the attendees. You see, the product that he had sold from the stage was a software tool of some type, for a web building tool or whatever. Goodness. And for whatever reason, it had some type of bug in it they could never figure out. So every single penny had to be refunded. Well, not only was it a major embarrassment for the speaker, obviously, but it was a massive hit to the pocketbook of the event promoter, because they didn't get their 50% share of that $375,000. And honestly, Audrey, it didn't help my pocketbook any either, because we take a cut of the promoter's money for managing the back of the room. Mm-hmm. But the lesson there is, if you're going to sell something from the stage, in my opinion, don't ever sell something that's not fully developed and tested and ready to go. I mean, another time we were handling the back of the room at an event up in Vancouver, and the guy did a nice little presentation and sold a training that was going to be coming up. And he did like $40,000 in sales, so not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but still nothing to sneeze at or whatever.
Absolutely.
And he promised that the training would be ready to go in 2 weeks. Well, invariably, 2 turned into 3, turned into 4, turned into 6. And again, every penny had to be refunded because he could not deliver on the timelines that had been promised.
And so that's a good point that you. I'm sorry to cut you off, because I've been in situations or speaking from the audience. I've been in audiences where they talk about we'll pre-sale your courses or pre-sale your books, and that's what you just said. That's very dangerous.
Well, I do want to put a caveat in here. I think if you're selling the program that you're going to deliver in real time, so, sign up for this webinar series that will start on this date or whatever, then you're going to be recording it as you go. I think that's okay. Okay. But you gotta be very careful. You're skating on thin ice, in my opinion, if you're selling some type of buggy.
Yeah. Especially if you're dependent on, there's some other people or other tasks or down the road, in the process, there's other steps, and you're dependent on those steps working out, not just you. So to sum it up in 3 words, what do you feel are the greatest keys to being a successful speaker or author or information marketer? You talked a lot about content.
We touched on it already, Audrey, but my number one belief is that your biggest business asset are relationships. So figure out how you're going to best nurture relationships. I'm a big believer in formal thank you notes. So get a card made up with your logo on it or whatever. And then, you're on somebody's podcast. Well, write them a little thank you note and mail it to them. Or you meet somebody at an event, send them a little thank you note. So, it's that offline touch that we talked about, but you will definitely stand out from the rest of the world by taking 5 minutes to write somebody a little thank you note, handwritten, blue ink, and then, mail it off to them. So relationships is number one. Number two is a lot of people have what we call imposter syndrome. So they think,
Oh. You had to go there, didn't you?
they think that nobody will listen to me, and what I have to say is not worthy and all that. And so you got to get over that imposter syndrome, because you truly are unique in the world, and you truly do have something to share, and you just need to have the courage to get out there and do it. I mean, I'm reinventing myself at the age of 64. So, if I can go and reinvent myself at my age, then it's never too late to get out there and make an impression on the world. So get over your imposter syndrome, get over your fear, have the courage to step up and be there. I mean, I honestly, Audrey, should have been doing 10 years ago what I'm doing now, but I, for whatever reason, didn't have the gumption, didn't have the courage to get out there and do it. So don't be afraid to go for it. So relationships, having the courage to get over your imposter syndrome, and write a damn book, Audrey. Write a damn book.
You're supposed to be talking to the Chop Squad, not to me.
All right, Chop Squad, write your book. Write your book.
Little guilt coming out there. Well, Bret, this has been amazing. What's our next step? It's reaching out to you. How do we do that? And so let's get this ball rolling. We need this train to get on the tracks.
All right. So the best way to get a hold of me is via my personal website, which is BretRidgway.com, and that's Bret with one T and Ridgway without an E. So BretRidgway.com. If you're interested in speaking, I certainly would encourage you to check out my podcast, which is at spotlightonspeaking.com. And I also have a LinkedIn newsletter called Spotlight on Speaking Newsletter that I would encourage you to subscribe to. It's just, once a week, some tips and articles aimed specifically for helping speakers, sharpen up their game. So that's the best way to reach me. And certainly anybody can email me anytime. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, awesome. And you have a special report on there on your website?
I do. So I have a report called 3 Key Things Entrepreneurs Must Master to Build a Profitable Speaking Business. You can get that at the BretRidgway.com site, and hopefully it will help you out.
All right. Well, Bret, this has been amazing. I'm glad to sit at your feet today and your virtual feet and learn some more. And hopefully people will have gained gleaned some great knowledge and some courage to do what we need to do to take our business to the next level with adding speaking, publishing, being an author to it. So thanks again. If you have a last word, the floor is yours, or the mic is yours.
Last word. Oh, man. Let's see. Well, I'm going to circle back around to something I already said, but just because I feel it's so important. If you have something that you need to share with the world, get out there and do it. And keep in mind that trying to go it alone is a very tough road to hoe. So I encourage you to find a mentor, somebody who's been down that path before, and invest in that so that you can get to where you want to go faster, because you will wander around in the desert for a year or 2 years from now and still be, in the same position if you don't find somebody to help guide you down that path. So find a mentor who's been down where you want to go and take advantage of that.
Thank you. Chop Squad, you have your marching orders. Until next time. Thank you for listening to The Business Chop. We hope that you were able to glean valuable information from our guest and that you will download and share this podcast. Your rating and review is much appreciated. To go deeper with our guests, please visit their website and social channels. To learn more about us, please visit businesschop.info or altogether.biz, where we will help you expand your brand.